This is the National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria, located at kilometer 26 on the Badagry Expressway, Ijaniki in Lagos. Its responsibility is the organization and control of postgraduate medical education. It accredits training institutions and conducts postgraduate examinations in the various specialized branches of medicine and dentistry. It is the apex institution in the country for the production of specialists in medicine and dentistry, and its trainees are medical doctors and dentists who are products of undergraduate universities. Well, hello and welcome. This is 60 Minutes with me, Angela Ajitumobi. Thank you for joining me on the program today. Now, I stumbled upon this college in September 2013 at its annual convocation ceremony, where the governor of Delta State, Dr. Emmanuel Uduaghan, was made a fellow of the college. What then are the functions of this college? The college says it accredits institutions for professional postgraduate training of doctors and dentists, with a periodic publication of a list of such accredited institutions. It organizes professional postgraduate training programs and develops curriculum, as well as conducts an update of courses for training in the various specialized branches of medicine and dentistry as represented by the various faculties of the college. It conducts professional postgraduate examinations for the candidates in all the various faculties. It organizes a one-year clinical attachment training abroad for qualified resident doctors, and it carries out any other activities necessary in the furtherance of postgraduate medical education and quality healthcare in Nigeria. So join me after the break. I'm counting down 60 minutes with the current registrar of the college, Professor Wole Atoyebi, appointed by the governing board of the college on the 7th of June 2013 and has been registrar since 17th of June 2013. Welcome back. Welcome, Professor Atoyebi. Thank you very much for coming on the program today.
Thank you.
Now, I stumbled upon this college in 2013 at your convocation ceremony, and it struck me that it doesn't seem like many people know about this college. Would I be right in saying that?
You're very right.
Right.
In actual fact, when people knew that I've moved from the university for a period,
Yes.
many asked me, what's that about?
Yes.
And a number of people said, oh, we used to see a signboard when we are going to Badagry. And that's what they knew about the college.
So, okay, tell me this. If I have a doctor now, should I be worried that my doctor hasn't attended this college?
No, not at all.
Right.
There are different cadres of doctors. Because when a doctor graduates from the medical school,
Right.
he serves 1 year housemanship. During that period, he's not expected to practice on his own.
Right.
He practices in any institution, general hospital or teaching hospital under tutelage.
Right.
And after a 1 year housemanship period, he can now become fully registered. And when he's fully registered, he can practice anywhere, either at a primary care level, that is the comprehensive health centers, or he can go secondary level
Right.
under some consultants in the general hospitals,
Okay.
or he can even work in the teaching hospital. But At this period that is gaining experience as a young doctor, he is working under supervision. He
must not open a clinic on his own.
At that time when he's acquiring experience, most people, by the regulation, until after a period of 3 years that he has worked under tutelage, before he can now open his clinic. Right. But then he is working as a medical doctor providing general medical services, not as a specialist. So your doctor doesn't have to be a specialist,
right,
to treat malaria, to treat the common ailments, common cold, all the other conditions,
yes,
which really the primary care is constitute not less than 75% of the conditions that people will have.
Okay.
So that means he is competent to treat most of the ailments, and indeed, having been properly trained, having gone through housemanship, he should know when to refer you to a specialist.
Because I was coming there. If you say that 75% of the cases, medical cases to be seen, can be seen by a GP,
yes,
at what point do you need a specialist to come in? Because we've heard cases where some hospitals refuse to give up. You know, some doctors refuse to give up at a certain stage, saying, you know, I don't think I can do any more here. We need somebody more specialized.
That's unfortunate, because it shouldn't be so. At the medical school level, yes, we train our doctors to know the limits of their competence. Indeed, the best doctor is one who knows when to stop and refer to someone else. So that is actually what we tend to get into our students when they are in the medical school. That to be a 5-star, we say to be a 5-star doctor,
yes,
you must not only be ready to accept your limit, you must always try to share with others your problem. In fact, getting a second opinion is always important when you are in doubt. That is what we teach them, that when you do that, it doesn't mean you are not competent.
It doesn't mean you're a failure.
It doesn't mean you are a failure. It makes you a 5-star, because you 5-star doctor, because you know the limit of your competence.
Right. Okay, so this college is the one that trains the specialists.
Yes.
But there was a time when all doctors had to go abroad for specialized training.
Yeah.
And now that this college is offering this service, because I call it a service, the college in doing this is saving us valuable foreign exchange that we could be spending abroad. If we're saving all that money, not sending people abroad, are we using it in this college?
Well, to some extent, but not as it should be. Because until the amendment of the Medical and Dental Practitioner Act in 1969,
yes,
all trainings for postgraduate to produce specialists were being carried out abroad. But by Decree 44 of 1969, the Medical Council Act was amended for them to start training in Nigeria, so as to train more people. That's one.
Yes.
Secondly, save the foreign exchange.
Yes.
And thirdly, to let these doctors stay at home, providing some services while they are training. Because if you send imagine if all the resident doctors in Nigeria are sent abroad, that means we have depleted the number of doctors available in the country.
Yes.
So when that idea came, the Medical Council now formed examination boards. In 1969, the decree was signed. By 71, the medical boards were formed, and they started training. But later, it was realized that Medical Council should be regulating practice. And the body regulating the practice should not be the one also examining and producing specialists.
Yes.
And that was what gave rise to the college being established formally in 1979.
Right.
Even though a number of people had been trained, the SAT exam up to 77, 78, but 79, this college was formally formed by the Decree 67 of 1979 in September. However, when it started, the idea was government was going to fund it fully, making sure that the staff salaries are paid and all the infrastructure will be taken care of.
Is it meant to be a residential college?
No, it's not residential.
Right.
The way it is done worldwide is that you have the college,
Yes.
which we operate through institutions. These are usually university teaching hospitals all over the world, or tertiary healthcare institutions,
Right.
where you have consultants, those who are already specialists. Most of them at the hospital are both lecturers and consultants.
Right.
So it is usually a program that those people will be training them based on the curricula set by the college. They will undergo course of studies there. Then the college runs some courses which we have to mandatorily attend from time to time.
Right.
So that they will have enough knowledge, body of knowledge, while they gain the skills in the hospitals. The hospital, because the college is not where they are going to gain the skills.
Yes.
The skills they are going to acquire in the hospitals.
Yes.
So while they are doing this, the college will now conduct examination at intervals. Like in this college,
Yes.
we have 3 tiers of examination.
Exams. Okay.
The first one, they don't have to be in any institution. They call primary. It's based on what they should have known from the medical school.
So I've graduated as a doctor.
Yes.
And I want to come here. I will do the primary first.
Primary first. That primary examination is based on the specialty that you want to go in. You have to go into depth to know the basic sciences as related to that discipline.
Okay, let's be practical now. If I've graduated and I'm thinking of going, say, into O&G,
Yes.
my primary will be based on that O&G area.
That's right. Because O&G is a female specialty.
Yes.
So most of the things that will be examined at that primary will be the anatomy, that is the morphology, that the body parts,
Yes.
especially as regards female parts, reproductive organs,
Yes.
and then physiology, pregnancy, normal things that happen. So it must be well versed, not just generally. He must be able to show that he has in-depth knowledge of the anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, and pathology of the female reproductive organs.
If I don't have enough knowledge at that primary level,
Yes.
will I continue in the college?
No, you cannot. In fact, when we conduct this examination,
Yes.
and one is going to take place on
Yes.
the 19th of this September in 8 centers all over Nigeria. Whoever wants to become an associate fellow, that means to register as a boarding specialist,
Yes.
must have passed the primary.
Oh, so when you pass the primary, you actually become an associate.
You now register as an associate fellow. That I've passed primary, I want to start training, I
As
want
a
to get training
specialist.
as a specialist in this specialty.
Right.
So you go to a teaching hospital, any of the training institutions, it may be a federal medical center or general hospital, which is accredited. And that comes to the second part of it. The college accredits institutions for various specialized training.
Right.
Not all institutions are accredited to train all forms of specialists. I mean, let's take radiology, for example, which is about x-rays, scan, and so on. An institution that can train for obstetrics and gynecology may not be able to train in radiology because it may not have enough of the x-ray equipment, the CAT scan,
Yes.
the MRI, all those sophisticated equipment. But it may have the basic thing to be able to train someone to a level as obstetrics and gynecology.
Right.
So what we do in the college is that we set up a body to go and accredit that institution.
So that body goes round
Yes.
to look at all the institutions.
And based on our faculties,
Yes.
because we have 15 faculties in this college. A faculty is based on a discipline.
Right.
Like O&G, you mentioned obstetrics and gynecology is a faculty.
Faculty.
Anesthesia is a faculty.
And these faculties must have an institution where people can be trained in them.
That's right. So if you take, for example, anesthesia,
Yes.
anesthesia at the faculty, we send a panel And we use the peers.
Yes.
Like if the anesthesia department in the Lagos University Hospital should be accredited, the panel will consist of people who are not from Luth. Maybe somebody from Ahmadu Bello, someone from Calabar, the teaching hospital, top people there who are specialists in that field.
Yes.
They go there, look at all they have, look at how much work they are doing to be able to accredit you can train. Now, not only the facilities, they will consider three things.
Yes.
One, the personnel there, that's the first one, to train. Do you have enough specialists in this area to train people?
Right.
If you have 2, 3, yes, they can train people in that area. Now, the next thing is, do you have enough facilities? The machines to use to put people to sleep in anesthesia? Yes. If you have that, that's the second one. Then the third one is that you have enough workload.
Enough, well, for
to
want
gain
of a
experience.
better word to use, customers.
Enough customers, as this, or let's say clients. We don't want to call them
clients,
patients.
Yes.
We don't want to call them patients, really. Because if you don't have enough of such, that will limit how many people you can train. Because each faculty has what we call logbooks. That is, the number of cases you do must be entered. And there are prescribed minimum number of cases that you must have been exposed to over a period. So the first period is called leading to part 1. We call it junior residency.
Right.
At that time, the candidate will go around, do some rotation in different specialties, and keep a logbook which must be submitted. After a minimum of 24 months, most specialties now is 30 months. So the institution will now sign you up that you are eligible to come and do our examination here.
In the college?
In the college, following the prescribed minimum that we have said, time, exposure. So the two must be go together. Right. Not only spending 24 to 30 months, also I've seen enough cases.
Enough people. All right, we'll take our first break now. When we come back, we'll go to the third stage of coming into the college. So join us again after the break.
Who knows Abi better thing? Abi who no like better thing? All these fine things where they see so. Now money government they take do now. Abi, I say, it's like, I mean, excuse me, I dey pay my tax. I dey do it, I dey pay my tax. Say you don't pay your own tax. Have you pay your tax?
Pay your tax. It's your civic responsibility. It's your duty. It's the law.
Welcome back. If you've just joined me, it's 60 Minutes with me, Angela Jitumobi. On my hot seat today, Professor Wole Atoyebi is the Registrar of the National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria. Now, so I've done the 30 months.
Yes.
My logbook is signed, and what's the next stage?
The next stage is you'll be signed up to be eligible for the examination. So if the candidate comes, we now put the candidate through the examination process, which usually consists of various components. There's the written component, which first of all starts with the MCQ, that is multiple choice questions. If it goes through that, if I will not do what we call screening, we screen those who don't score appropriately. If they score less than 50% in that one, they may not be able to proceed
to the next stage.
But having scored 50%, then they can now progress to the next stage to write the essays and come for clinical examination.
What is the clinical? That's like a practical.
That's practical. That, for example, I'm a surgeon, so let me give you a good example of my specialty. So candidate coming for my specialty at part 1 level, at clinical, he will be confronted with any type of case in surgery. It may be a goiter, somebody with a goiter, maybe somebody with breast cancer, maybe somebody with prostate cancer. You just confront the patient he has not seen before. examine this
a
patient.
real human being
Real
patient.
human being patient. Because you're supposed to have trained 30 months seeing such type of patient. So we talk to that patient.
And you'll be watching.
You'll be watching the patient. Try to ask the relevant question, because the question, type of question he asks will show us whether he has gotten a grasp of the subject. So ask questions. After asking questions, examine the patient. After that, thank the patient. Patient sits aside, and we ask him questions.
On
Considering
what do you plan to do?
Plan to do for this patient?
So it's a kind of practical training.
It's it. In fact, we call it a competency-based training, because it's not a matter of knowledge only.
Yes.
It must be you have the knowledge and you display competence in the way you handle the patient.
Right.
Because not only must you have the knowledge, you must be gentle, you must also...
Your bedside manner.
The manner that we show that this one is a specialist, not just one who's just struggling to make his way there. So it's important. And there are two parts.
Yes.
There are some, the first part we call long case, is that if we see one patient and spend some 30 minutes talking to the patient and making a diagnosis.
Right.
The second part, which we have done in an objective manner now, will be to see many cases, spot diagnosis, that you see someone, look at him like this, just within 2-3 minutes,
You can say
you can say this. Why do you think it's low? It's short question, and you go ahead. And we now, in most specialties now, we have done in an objective manner, in which case everyone will see the same type of patient. Not that this one we see a very difficult one, and this one we do.
So we'll all see the same, and then we'll see who's better at analyzing.
So that it will be fair to all concerned. So we call it the objective structured clinical examination. And with that, you must pass each component.
Okay, when you say you must pass each component, you know how in university you have 6 subjects?
Yes.
And if you pass 4 and 2, let my people go, you will graduate. Does that happen in medicine?
It happens in medicine at undergraduate level.
Not at this
Not
specialist
at
level.
level. You are supposed to be a specialist. So, the oral component, just talking to you, asking you a question, you must pass. The clinical one, you examine the patient, we see the way you examine the patient, you must pass that. There's no way of bringing the marks like we do in medical school, adding the one from the oral to the one in clinical, to bring the one in written. No, you cannot do that. You must pass each component and display. And unlike when you are giving, we have a practice in this college.
Yes.
We don't even give raw marks. We give you marks as P, that's pass, I'll try pass, P plus, very good pass,
Right.
or P plus 1, excellent pass. And then P minus, that is borderline pass. That is, it's enough, but
Not enough.
not enough. Or P minus 1, woeful. So someone who is borderline does not cross, because for the level of your examination, part 1 or part 2, you are not allowed to go if you are borderline, because it's a specialist.
Will you be allowed to resit?
Yes, that is the thing with it, because you know that you can improve. So the examinations are conducted twice a year.
Right.
We conduct examinations in March for primary, May for part 1 and part 2, and then in September, that's primary, then October, November for part 1 and part 2. So it's twice a year. Someone who fails in March or May can come back again in November. It's every 6 months.
Yes.
And the only thing is that if somebody has failed many times,
How many times can you fail?
there's no end to it. The only thing is that if you have been certified,
Yes.
eligible by your college, by your training institution that you have, and we are no longer in training and you are doing the exam, after some time, usually we are fixing for 5 times now.
Yes.
We will ask you to go and retrain before you come back for examination.
Okay. First of all, when they say to us, you know, when you go to a hospital, don't go seeking a specialist first of all. Your first point of call shouldn't be a specialist. There's a reason why.
There's a reason. It's very important because, like I'm a surgeon,
Yes.
so somebody who has a medical problem coming to see me first is waste of time to start with, waste of my time,
Yeah.
which I could be using for somebody. At the same time, I'm already narrowed, I'm already focused on certain areas. Whereas a general practitioner is thinking generally and looking for, is this something I can manage? Is this something I have to refer to someone? And then think of which of the specialists. We are all basically doctors, we all have the general knowledge.
Yes.
But it's waste of resources to go and see a specialist because you may actually be seeing the wrong specialist. You just say, oh, I have a problem. There are people, for example, who believe that they have this problem with their voice. So the problem must be with the voice. So he wants to see the ENT doctor.
Yeah.
You understand truth? Because we have had patients that have published in literature.
Yeah.
Some of them were discovered to have reflux, which is an abdominal problem. Because he has reflux, that is, he regurgitates food.
Yes.
The acid in the stomach irritates the vocal cord, and therefore it's affecting his head. So if he decides on his own to go and see an ENT surgeon, believe it's a voice problem, he has missed it because it might be referred back. Because really, if he's a general practitioner, he will think broadly and say, look, from the history, when you are interviewing a patient, what is wrong with you? What happens to you? And he may catch that point that, oh, usually at night when I sleep, I feel this reflux.
Yes.
So rather than sending to the voice man first, he will send him to someone in that regard. So it is important to let people see the primary care doctor, and then he can refer to the appropriate specialist. And that is why we make sure that those in the specialties, each person focuses on what he's doing. And at part 2 level, when we have certified somebody to be competent, he trains for a period as a senior registrar. And part of that training is he must also carry out a research project and produce his own thesis. So that's why the training is longer. And the thesis is going to write will be based on a research topic in his specialty. That is, if it's someone in my specialty, for example, as a surgeon, we see many cases of breast cancer these days. So he can pick up an aspect of breast cancer and research into it. Maybe it's the receptors we find on the surface that we modulate the treatment, find out what are the areas, how common is it, how is the distribution, how does it affect the stage at which the patient presents, and so on. So that research work must be detailed, presented, because at the part 2 exam, there are 2 different components. One is the research part, to examine his dissertation that he has produced, a thesis. The second part is the clinical and knowledge area, to which is still going to pass. He must pass.
He must pass the exam and the clinical exam.
So he must pass the 2 independently. But if he has done a good research, just like when somebody goes for PhD and so on, and pass that, we say he has passed that. He doesn't have to come back for that. But he must also pass the clinical. If he doesn't pass the clinical at that same exam, he keeps on coming back
for that clinical
until he passes. So he'll be a complete specialist. That we say, yes, he's both competent, both in knowledge and research endeavor, and also as a professional.
Can someone call himself a specialist when he hasn't been to this college?
That would be fraudulent. There are also other colleges.
Outside the country?
Outside the country. Because even in Nigeria, we have the West African College. That is for the whole West Africa sub-region. In fact, we hold meeting together. We call it the quadripartite meeting of sister colleges. That is the Ghana College of Physicians and Surgeons, West African College of Physicians, West African College of Surgeons,
Yes.
and our national college. Just to make sure that we synchronize our methods of accreditation and examination. So I will be able to have a mutual respect, and when we see somebody from this college,
Yes, with the certificate.
we
yes.
can also acknowledge that he has been well trained. So the fact is that anybody who has not gone through this type of structured training,
Yes.
which is a competency-based training, cannot call himself a specialist. If he has MBBS,
Yes.
he is a doctor.
Right.
He can practice medicine, but he's not a specialist.
Can a doctor do the things that a specialist does? You know, we've heard situations where, for instance, a woman needs a cesarean operation, and the doctor is not known to be a gynecologist in the sense of specializing in it, but he's volunteering himself to do a CS. Is it possible for a doctor who is not a specialist?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that there are varying degree of complexity when it comes to performing operation.
Yes.
When a doctor has gone through some training, there is a limit that he can do some things
Yes.
that he has been trained to do. And that is where the Medical and Data Council of Nigeria that prescribes the minimum
Right.
exposure you must have before you do certain things. People can be trained, and general practitioners are trained. There are some general practitioners that are trained to be able to carry out simple procedure like a cesarean section. Because to us, cesarean section is a simple procedure.
Yes.
But it will be foolhardy for that general practitioner to go ahead and say he wants to carry out a major operation like
Triple bypass.
bypass, or even for doing a mammectomy, say he's removing fibroids.
Wow.
Because if it's uncomplicated, he might be able to do cesarean section. But when it's complicated too,
Yes.
he is advised to refer that to somebody who is specialized. Because if the patient is bleeding, for example, and he believes it's placenta previa, a condition we call low-lying placenta,
Placenta, yes.
he might have a difficulty, but if it's straightforward in a place where there is no specialist to save the life of the mother, yes,
The basic CS.
basic one. That is as a general practitioner, but not as a specialist. A specialist will be able to weigh when to operate and when not to operate.
Right.
So that is the basic difference, that some people go beyond their limits. And that is why they have to face the Medical and Data Council. Because I've been on the council before, and we have seen several cases of people going beyond the limit of their competence. Sometimes may be fatal. And that is why the Medical Council is insisting that all doctors must be registered, all doctors must know their limit and abide by the code of ethics as regards what you do and what you don't do.
Join us again after the break. Welcome back. My concluding moments now with Professor Wole Atoyebi, the Registrar of the National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria. Now, the one-year clinical attachment training abroad for qualified resident doctors, is that still on?
We have even redefined that by not calling it 1 year clinical attachment, but rather overseas clinical attachment,
Right.
which may be 3 months for some specialty, maybe 2 years for another specialty, not necessarily 1 year. It was 1 year when this college was founded,
Right.
because at that time too, we do not have most of the equipment available abroad in our institution. But today, we have a number of institutions in Nigeria that have almost any equipment you can talk of
Yeah.
in some specialties, not in all specialties,
Yeah.
but in some specialties, everything that you need to learn to become a particular specialist in an area, we have areas where they are available in this country.
Yes.
And then what we are also encouraging is that people do not have to stay in one place to train. For example, if somebody is training in Ibadan, that is
Yeah.
not far from Ile-Ife, where we have Mofemi Awolowo University Hospital, and he's in general surgery, which is abdominal surgery,
Yes.
and he can do endoscopy, colonoscopy, and they are doing a lot of laparoscopic surgery
Yes.
in Ile-Ife, that is keyhole surgery. He can stay there for a few months to get his exposure in keyhole surgery. That's laparoscopic surgery
Yes.
there. That way, you can, even within the country, have all the exposure you needed before you go for the exam. But there are still some few specialties where, especially when it comes to cardiothoracic surgery, that is operating in the chest and on the heart,
Yes.
where we don't have all the facilities. So people need to train, or neurosurgery, where people operating on the brain.
Brain.
If you want to, you can do your basic training here, have an exposure of 1 year to 2 years abroad in such specialties. That is what we are encouraging government to fund. In the past, like when I was doing my training, I
Yeah.
went through this training before I finished in 1990. It was almost routine. Everyone at that time, that's why it's called 1 year abroad
Yes.
program. Everyone goes abroad for 1 year to get this exposure before sitting for exam. But now, with the improvement we have had in various areas, not everybody needs to go abroad for 1 year.
Right.
But it is good to have an exposure. So, because we are not training doctors for just Nigeria, I want them to be international.
Yeah.
So, various specialties need some few exposure in some area.
Yes.
Like in plastic surgery, maybe microsurgery. Like if one finger is cut off, how you can reimplant that finger. But that may be what it goes there for alone. So we have been encouraging government to fund this.
Okay, so
And
from what you are saying, it's obvious why we still find people going abroad for medical treatment, in spite of the giant strides that this college has done to fill the gap we need for specialists.
Yes, yes and no, I may say. Because a number of the cases we have had of people going abroad
Yes.
are people who don't need to go abroad. They are for things that we can do here. There are some areas
Yes.
that should go abroad because those things can be done. But they constitute less than 25% of those who have been going abroad. But many of those people who should even go abroad are not going because they cannot afford it. That is why we are saying that government should make sure that for anybody to go abroad for treatment, especially spending public fund,
Yes.
it should have certification by the Ministry of Health using the expertise of this college.
In other words, to show that we don't have the specialists here
Yeah,
for
in this country.
thing. That's why I want to go.
That's right. We support that. And indeed, it's because people are not following the civil service regulation. Because it's part of the civil service regulation. For anyone in public service to travel abroad, he should get permission from the Federal Ministry of Health stating that we don't have the facilities in this country. But it's abused. It will be necessary in some cases, few cases, that we don't have all the facilities. But the people who are going abroad, I mean, routinely people go abroad for hip surgery, total hip replacement, total knee replacement.
Are those available?
Available here. They are doing it at the orthopedic hospitals. But our people go because they believe that maybe status symbol on one part.
One of the major fears that I've heard from people is the misdiagnosis. We all know how the late Gani Fayemi was famously misdiagnosed, and everyone remembers that, and that's one of the greatest fears.
Well, misdiagnosis and things like that happen everywhere in the world. In fact, I must tell you that from what we know, it is known all over the world that our own clinicians are better at diagnosis than in those other parts, because they now depend more on gadgets, and therefore they miss many clinical things. But because we don't have many of these gadgets. We apply ourselves to clinical progress, and our people are really competent in making diagnosis. And then you see, you don't make and that is one of the problems we have.
Yes.
When you just choose to go to an institution that says it has specialist practice without, first of all, because we discussed that earlier on, if you start from the primary care physician, and then you go up, we know that a lot has to be done for our people to build confidence in our public institutions, especially because of the recurrent industrial action by all manner of workers, even those who are health professionals and those who are not health professionals. So many people don't go to this public institution that, look, they may say they are on strike tomorrow, and therefore they go and patronize them.
And if everything goes on well, you know, I come in, I pass the part 1, I do all that is necessary, and every stage I'm getting a tick. How long will it take for me to become a specialist?
After passing primary, because that is where we say you are trainable. That primary exam, we don't count that part there.
Okay.
Because you can do
the
that.
time before primary is not counted.
It's not counted. Once you pass primary, you have shown that you are trainable.
Right.
You have to spend a minimum of 5 years, although most people spend minimum of 6 years. In paper, it's 5 years.
Right.
But really, 6 years from what we have seen. Most of those who come out of the program in record time would have spent 6 years.
6 years. So you do your 6 or 7 years undergraduate?
Yes.
Then another 6
as postgraduate.
Are doctors well paid to justify all these 13 years?
Well, not as well paid as in the developed countries. That's why we have brain drain. That is the problem with brain drain. Many people migrate. And because Nigerian doctors, despite all the complaints that you hear people, when our people live here and go abroad, they are hotcakes. I mean, we result that we have so many doctors in the Americas that they have a big association, AMPA, Association of Nigerian Physicians in the Americas. There are so many. Also, the one in Britain also have their own association, MANSAC.
Yes.
You see, this is because many of people have migrated. But we shouldn't count it as brain loss or brain drain. We should make some brain gain from it. So we are trying to encourage some of them who have acquired some expertise to come and give back. Come occasionally to train people. They may be going and coming, give something back, at least, because most of them were trained here.
Yes.
So we have people who have been trained, but they stay there because they are better paid. Nigeria cannot afford pay, but I think it's getting better. But it should be sustained so that our doctors can stay at home. And the other thing is to give an incentive. There was a time we mooted the idea, because I was president of the Nigerian Medical Association at the time, and we put part of it as a rural allowance for people who opt to work in the rural areas. But the way it turned out, it was peanut. How it is done in America. Some people, after becoming a specialist, opt to go to work in some rural areas. Because at that time they are young, the children are still growing up, they make a lot of money. And after serving there, they can now come to the city. So it's not small money. You don't just put an allowance of 20,000 per month and you think that will make somebody abandon the city.
Yes.
So government should do better to encourage and attract specialists to work in some rural areas. That way, majority of Nigerians will now have access to qualitative health care. But to be a specialist, it takes a long time and it takes commitment. So if you are not committed, if you just think of the name, then medicine is not the place to go.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about Professor Atoyebi, who's the registrar here at the Postgraduate Medical College. He began his professional career with an internship in 1977 at the famous Atoyebi Specialist Hospital in Ibadan, Oyo State. He did postgraduate residency training with Lagos University Teaching Hospital. That's 1980 to 1985. He became a full consultant surgeon in 1990, lecturer, Department of Surgery, October 92 with the college here. He also became a senior lecturer in 1997 and associate professor in October 2000. In October 2005, the Governing Council of the University of Lagos appointed him a full professor. His areas of specialty cover surgical gastroenterology, endocrinology, and the breast. His special research interests are in surgical oncology and surgical infections. He served on several committees of the Federal Ministry of Health. He has, at one time or the other, occupied virtually all key positions within medical professional bodies. He's a member of several professional associations. He served as the provost of the College of Medicine of the University of Lagos, completing 2 terms from January 1, 2009 to December 31, 2012. He was appointed the registrar of this college in June 2013 and assumed office 10 days later on June 17. But you also say, Professor, that watching the UNILAG Vice Chancellor die left you helpless. Why?
So sad, because I just arrived from a trip to United States of America that day. And as I was about to drop my box at home, I got a call that he was rushed to the casualty in Louth. So I didn't enter my house, went back, and at that time, he had an arrest and he was being resuscitated.
Right.
Everything that we had was put on. He was taken to the high dependency unit because he got resuscitated and the heart started beating in the casualty. So we took him to the high dependency unit only for him to have another arrest. And that is because of the delay that happened before he got
to the hospital.
And that was really one of the saddest moments of my life, because it was a genial vice chancellor, good man, and I was quite close to him. So I felt terrible that if only something had been done earlier and faster, he might not have died.
Do you think that's a major problem we have here, early access to medical care? Is it one of the reasons why a lot of people die from things that they wouldn't ordinarily die from in other countries?
It's a major problem here to be able to get help early. Because as he collapsed in his office, and he was still able to make a call and call the people. The ambulance could have taken him where we have the facilities. And right from the ambulance, he would have been intubated, he would have started resuscitation before he gets to hospital. That didn't happen. Following that sad incident, the university had acquired more up-to-date infrastructure, but it's not just the university, it should be everywhere. Just what one of my nephews told me in the US, that when they watch our African magic and they say somebody died and they are shouting, they say that, can't they call an ambulance? But really, where is the ambulance to call? So it's a terrible thing.
I know that one of the challenges you've talked about is funding for the university. If anyone is watching now, can private people help with funding? How can they contribute to funding this institution?
Really, that is what we need now. Because it's so sad, our people are going to India. India, most of these hospitals are going to a private institution, Apollo, all this, they are not government institutions. It's because people have money, pulled money together, Also, government supported them by creating an enabling environment, also allowing them to have interest-free loans to boost up the money they already have to put into it. They were able to attract most of the Indians who are specialists from abroad.
Yeah.
Like we have so many in America now, our own people who are running the service. We can do the same. That is where the private sector can come in. I read in the newspaper about government talking about mega hospitals and things like that. I hope we do it the correct way because that is the way to go. The specialists are there, but they need to be properly utilized.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you.
Don't forget to watch this program, if you will, on our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/TEDTV60. That's www.youtube.com/TEDTV60. Well, you can like 60 Minutes with Angela on Facebook. Alternatively, you can follow me on Twitter, Angela at 60 Minutes. I'm Angela Ajitumobi. I thank you for the pleasure of your company. www.youtube.com/TEDTV60. I'm Angela Ajitumobi. I thank you for the pleasure of your company.